Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Pain don't hurt.
Is my boomstick!
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to the Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we're talking 2016's Warcraft. We assume if you're listening to this episode, you have already seen the movie. God, this movie.
So before we get into that comment, let's introduce our guest. Joining us today is my buddy Josh. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be on. It's been a long time, and I've followed you guys obviously because we follow each other. So
I don't follow you.
Well, okay, that's fair.
And I love that you say you're excited when we're talking Warcraft.
Well, okay. Maybe not excited about, the movie talk, but excited to talk with the boys,
Yeah, and I first off, I picked this movie because I knew you were going to be on. I wanted to pick a video game film, so I picked the highest grossing video game film adaptation, and I'm sorry, boys. I fucked up. But I know you have both covered it before on Pixel Opinions, but I really want to be part of this conversation because I've got some issues that I would love to hear your responses to. And Sure. Honestly, Josh, I need you to tell me what the fuck happened in this movie.
All right, so before we dive into the movie, Josh, just quickly introduce yourself, let people know who you are.
Yep, well, I'm Josh, as Sandra said, his buddy from Pixel Opinions. You can, of course, check out all the stuff on youtube.com/pixelopinions. Also check out Facebook at The Pixel Opinions, not Pixel Opinions.
Perfect. And I'm going to put you on the spot here with one more question. Can you just tell our listeners very briefly your history with Warcraft outside of this movie?
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
I said briefly.
Yeah,
briefly.
I'll keep it brief. I have played Warcraft as a genre since its inception with orcs and humans. In terms of World of Warcraft, that also I played since the initial launch in 2004. And I've been a fan for the most part. And I'm also a pretty big guy when it comes to understanding kind of the lore and unpacking that mess of storylines. So, hopefully I will be able to add a little bit of, we'll say clarity to what they tried to do with this movie.
Oh, thank God.
18 years. I just realized that you just said World of Warcraft launched in 2004.
Yeah.
18 years.
Yeah, that's just World of Warcraft. Like, that's just one MMO. Like, that's crazy to think.
It can legally drink here in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You weren't alive when the first Warcraft game came out, were you?
Oh yeah.
Come on, man.
I don't know when it came. I don't know when it came out. Jesus Christ! My experience with this fucking franchise is 2, which I played in high school. I don't know how long it was between the first and second game, and I played a bit of 3 because a girl I was dating in first year of university was obsessed with 3 because it was relatively new. I'm old. So
I guess just to give you some clarity, the original Warcraft game came out 10 years before World of Warcraft. So 94. Okay. It's not that old. I mean, we're pretty old, but it's not that old yet.
All right. So I'm going to push you aside for a second here, Josh. Ben?
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row, my game is very unexciting.
Okay.
Who from this movie was in a review we had done in the past?
There's only one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ben Foster?
Yep.
30 Days of Night.
You got it. Man, the last 2 weeks have been so garbage for that game.
I probably would have even guessed that the only person you guys have ever talked about on here was Ben Foster, because almost everybody else is non-existent, really.
Oh, you shut your mouth. There are some good people in this movie just turning in very poor performances because they were giving fuck all to work with.
Yeah, I mean, Clancy Brown was Blackhand, and I love Clancy Brown, and he was fantastic in the recent season of Dexter.
Clancy Brown was in Dexter?
Yeah, like this, the Revival 1 season that they just did recently.
Oh,
and he was great in it.
Yeah, I don't acknowledge that existing.
Okay, fine.
Travis Fimmel, though.
That was a whole bunch of messing around. What say we get into this movie that it sounds like none of us really want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, God, guys, highest grossing video game adaptation to date. Okay.
It's all because of China.
I was going to say, does it say where the money came from?
Oh, yeah. It was a major bomb in North America, but everywhere else it did quite well. So open on a showdown between an orc and a human. A voiceover tells us the war between the two races, but this story covers their first encounter and the introduction of fell magic, which is a new concept to me. Honestly, I think this looks really good. I love how we only get a slight reveal of the orc, and I think this was a perfect bit of hype material to get fans into it. But my question is, with the voiceover, especially regarding fell, is the fell canon to the games, Josh?
It is.
It is? Okay. Introduced when? Do you know?
So canon changed a bunch of times, but yes, the fell magic was something that the orc warlocks in the original game were able to control. So it's not wrong. It maybe manipulated a little bit, but yes, what they stated is correct, really. So
okay. So basically quite similar to how comic book storylines can be manipulated to fit a certain story.
Yeah. Like, again, if you go back to, like, the original writing, okay, maybe it's not super clear as to them talking, about the fell's source and things like that, and who it comes from and stuff, and, the use of, like, Gul'dan, for instance, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yes, the fell magic was mentioned, so.
Okay, cool.
Can I say right off the bat, one of my bigger complaints when I watched this movie the first time and reviewed it for Pixel Opinions was that I thought that, like, the CGI for the orcs was not great, in that it was a decent quality, but it felt like it didn't fit into the, like, landscape around it. On second viewing now, it looks like it fits so much better. And I went back and listened to that review, and I'm not quite sure where my complaints from that came from. I don't know if it felt different in the theater, because that's where I actually saw it the first time. But watching it at home, it all meshed a lot better.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it looked quite good. Do you think maybe it was because, yes, you saw it in theater and that is an experience, but not only just for, like, moviegoers, but for a fan of the material, that you were like, well, this isn't as perfect as I wanted it to be? Because we know this is bad.
It might be that a theater, I mean, it's obviously much different resolution and picture quality, that maybe when it's, like, magnified to that degree, it does look a little bit different, maybe a little bit more jarring. Not that it looked bad technically, just that it didn't blend super well. But it's funny that you say movie experience, because I saw this movie, I think it was out for a week or two when it came out, after it came out in the theater. And I went, and I think it was me, Derek, and Alex in the theater. And this wasn't one of our, like, we went to the small theater. Like, this was a Cineplex. And there was no one else in the theater. And we were like, this movie's been out for 2 weeks. Why is there no one here?
And keep in mind, anybody listening, obviously, this is way pre-COVID. So that's...
you would expect it to be packed, yeah.
Exactly.
I thought so. I'm like, it's World of Warcraft. I mean, this was shortly after we worked at EV Games, and I knew how big of a force it was. I'm like, where are all the fans? We do a midnight release at EB Games and we have 500 people standing outside. And here I am only a couple weeks after it came out, and there's 3 of us in the entire theater. What an experience.
Okay, I just assumed it was big within the first few weeks of opening here, but obviously I know nothing about this.
Maybe a few days.
Yeah. Well, we cut to Orcs Durotan, who I have to say, every time I typed his name, I kept writing Duotang. And pregnant Draka. These 2 are played by Toby Kebbell and Anna Galvin. The voiceover continues that the orc world is dying and they have to find a new land. Now, right off the bat, I love this couple. I find them incredibly adorable, and I'm ready for this movie to be focused on them.
Yeah, their interaction was really wholesome, you know?
Yeah, the chemistry was there, and which is crazy to say because we were watching CGI characters, but even the voice acting, like these 2 played off of each other so well.
Yeah. Be prepared for this movie to focus on them.
Well, one of many disappointments. Next, there's the basically a great orc gathering where all the clans have been summoned. Josh, cages are filled with beings here. What race are these?
They are the Draenei. So they're another race of aliens that exist on the orc homeworld of Draenor. Okay.
Is this explained in the movie?
It is not. No, the movie explains it actually quite poorly.
I was talking to Sandro earlier, and you'll notice this through my notes for the next little bit. There is so much crammed into the beginning of this movie, and I by the time they're done talking, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. And the rest of the time, I'm so removed from the story, I'm just watching the shit that's happening on screen. This is obviously not meant for people who haven't played the games, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the lore beats make a lot more sense if you have a decent hold of kind of like the Warcraft lore, for sure.
And I have a problem with that because there is a lot of IPs where you can jump into a movie that is based on books and comic books and video games around it and still understand exactly what's going on. This movie does not attempt to explain anything for the uninitiated. And it makes it hard to view it without a knowledge of the game lore, which is just a crime when it comes to movie making.
Yeah. It's terrible. I felt alienated watching this movie. And this should be like crazy fantasy action film. I love that shit. And I felt like they were just kind of pushing me away saying that this isn't for you. Just go away.
Yeah, the aliens, the Draenei, are in cages, and he said he felt alienated. So clever.
Right. Introduction of the, quote, half-breed Garona, played by Paula Patton, and Gul'dan, who you're talking about, Josh, played by Daniel Wu, who's a powerful warlock who uses the Fel.
Yes.
Okay, continuing with alienation. As an outsider, knowing nothing about these games, I loved all of the orc designs in this. I don't know if they're true to game designs or whatnot, but they all looked really cool, super menacing, and I just loved it.
They are actually true to game design. There's actually a lot of little tidbits of characters that exists within the warlords, the different groups or the tribes that are true to their in-game depictions, which can be very impressive if you recognize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem like a failed love letter to fans of the game.
Okay, now, is Garona a character from the games?
Yes.
Really?
Yep, Garona is a character from the games. Now, this is probably the one, I would say, issue I have with, well, not the one issue I have with the movie, but a big issue I have with the movie, is that Garona is not actually depicted like she is in the games, right? In the games, she's depicted by a standard orc character model, right? And later on, it becomes a little bit more customized, but it's like, it's still, she looks more orc than anything else. In this, it just looked like a human painted green, right? And I felt that was a huge disservice to the character itself. And it was purely for sex appeal, right?
Oh,
and
definitely.
like, that just feels like it cheapens the entire experience. So
Yeah, it's like they got Paula Patton and the director's like, we are not CGing her. She is in this fucking movie.
yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, a lot of the other characters are attractive, men, and yet, well, we're gonna make them look like orcs, right? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
What do you think you're going to get when you cast orcs?
Well, yeah.
You're trying to appeal sexually to people with orcs? Come on. You're barking up the wrong tree here.
I don't want to know what tree you're barking up, Josh. But I have to ask, why? Like, is Garona a slave? Because they're
Yes.
dragging her around by a chain.
I would say this is actually a little bit where it despairs a little bit from the lore in that she was actually mind controlled by Gul'dan in the actual lore. So she was not, I guess, a slave in the sense of like, master and slave, but she was definitely enslaved by Gul'dan himself.
Okay, I would have liked that to have been an element of the movie because this is incredibly confusing. Even her,
she essentially gets used as a pawn in the whole scheme.
Could you imagine her being like a mind-controlled sleeper agent on the other side? You could have actually had levels to this story.
Yeah,
especially for that turn or like what she does to the king at the end. You'd be like, that would be a wicked arc for that character.
Yeah. I mean, even if you just wanted to, we'll say, like you said, sleeper agent, it didn't have to be necessarily like a mind control, like a normal mind control, but almost like a Russian spy type of mind control, right?
Yeah. Next, we get the reveal of the gate that's used to enter the human realm of what I guess is Azeroth, because I don't remember them as saying it. But there's only limited amount of magic, so they can only send their strongest warriors through for now. The whole soul sucking thing, is that actually what's happening, or is it just like a life drain, or what is Gul'dan doing?
So in the movie, yeah, he's it looks like he is draining the life essence out of the Draenei, right? And using that to power the Fel. Now that is not necessarily true, right? Fel magic is really just the same as any other type of magic. It's just a very dark form of magic, right? So,
well, that's good to know. Thanks, movie.
Realistically, if you look at the plot of how they were actually pulled in, they were actually invited, which I know they do talk about a bit later, but it was Medivh who actually opens the portal to let them in.
That I like, and yes, they do touch on that, but that seems like it should be a much larger plot point than it is.
Yeah. And I mean, this almost feels like an homage to the warlocks in the game, who a lot of their spells are powered by soul shards.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Like they tried to use, okay, you know what, we've got some of these game elements and we've got this lore that maybe we can't figure out how to write it, so we'll just mash them together, right? So.
Or they were having a writer's meeting and a writer from Mortal Kombat accidentally stumbled in that day and was like, your soul is mine.
I love the fact that you think there was meetings between writers. There was a writer and the director, and that was it. Definitely, director's like, we're just going to go with my idea. And the director's done some good things, like Moon, but I don't know. Draka actually is one of the orcs to go through the portal or the gate, but while in between realms, goes into labor, which I thought was an interesting bit of storytelling. And once passing through to the other side, obviously this does not go well with the orc leaders. And this leads to a very strange birth scene that made me slightly uncomfortable.
Yes. I remember that.
Yeah, which we don't really need to get into. But the baby is stillborn, and Gul'dan sucks the life essence from a deer and gives it to the child, reviving it. And now we get the title screen.
Yep.
It took a long time.
Everything in this movie takes a long time, and there is no payoff.
Spoilers, dude.
Ironforge. Know nothing about this place. Totally believe it's just a location in the game. But we get our introduction to Lothar, which is a name that sounds familiar. I want to say the third game?
I mean, he exists in the second game for sure. Absolutely
Okay.
in the second game, but...
That's the only one I really know, and apparently I don't know it that well. Lothar is played by Travis Fimmel, who I know from Vikings. He played Ragnar Lothbrok. And he's the commander of the army in Stormwood, I guess. Is given a boomstick, which I guess is their first gun, of which I have no recollection of in the game. Lothar is sent to Stormwood after hearing the kingdom was under attack. Guys, any comments on this scene? It all just seems very rushed.
Oh, my first comment is it's Stormwind.
Stormwind?
Yes.
I don't know why I put wood. My bad. This is going to come up a lot, boys.
My issue with this, and of course I'm not going to be talking about anything in the plot here because I don't do that. That's contributing, in a good way, is why do they give us nameplates for locations if they don't do it for all of them? We get Ironforge, we get Stormwind, I believe, and then every other location, nothing. Why?
I think you're right. Yeah, it is only those two locations, and it's like, okay, those are two of the major cities, but you'd think other locations would also be just as, I guess, important to whoever's watching, right? So,
but just from a movie making standpoint, some consistency. Like at one point they say, "Let's take him to Goldshire," and then we see them at an inn, and
why
you
not
assume
say Goldshire?
Be consistent with the nameplates. What are you doing?
Yep.
Jerks. And then this is just such a shoehorned way to get some dwarves into the movie because otherwise they're not needed in this.
They're only in two other scenes.
It gives you a small, I guess, MacGuffin as well with the boomstick because it is something that gets used in one of the fights later on, but it's like, is it really a major plot point? He could have had that on him and used it in the fight and nobody would have batted an eye. They didn't have to introduce it as a weapon.
Nor did we need to go to Ironforge for that. It's like, you introduce the main protagonist of the story, or who I assume is the main protagonist. I guess it's between him and Durotan, maybe. Yeah, it's probably Lothar, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You introduce the main character of the story to us in a place that we will not visit again. Why?
Yeah. No idea. And they make it out to look like it's an important area, which I'm sure in games it probably is.
It's the dwarven capital city, fine. But why are we here?
I don't fucking know that. The name comes up on the screen. I'm like, okay. And we don't go back.
That actually brings up another good point with what Sandra was mentioning about how it had the little splash with the name of the city. Why not? If they really wanted to expand their audience, it could have said Ironforge and then Dwarven capital, right? And then you would have been like, perfect. Okay, that's where the dwarves live. Okay, I get it now, right? And then when it goes to, let's say, Stormwind, it says the human capital. And it's like, oh, okay, so these people, they live separately, but they work together. Stuff like that. You can piece together bits and things like that.
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about Ironforge. So we'll never talk about that again. Let's move on to Stormwind. We meet Khadgar, a young mage played by Ben Schnetzer, who's examining the bodies of the dead, which reveals they were killed with strange magic. I don't really think we're supposed to know it's the Fel yet.
Well, I don't think he's discovered it yet. I think this is just kind of something that we're piecing together as we go.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, we see the green mist of sorts. We know there's some sort of link because the only time we ever see green previously is with the orcs. The names. Okay, first off, guys, I'm sure anybody playing the games knows the names. I could not keep track of the names in this movie. Like throughout all of my notes, even with the king, I had to like go back to Wikipedia and be like, what is his name again? King what? Lane Rin. Okay. And like, I don't know why. It's like I don't need the names, which is kind of weird when I'm watching the movie. It's visual acknowledgement. Like, that's the king. That's the queen, who's never referred to as the queen. Even like orc names, like they'll show up on screen. I'm like, that's probably Black Hand, I guess, or Orgrim's pretty, standoutish, unique looking. But I had a major problem with these names. But yeah, we have King Lane, played by Dominic Cooper, and Queen or Lady Taria, played by Ruth Negga. These two I see all the time together. They're actually married in real life, and you would think because of that there would be chemistry there, but there isn't.
No acting chemistry, that's for sure.
Maybe a bit when they were both in the show Preacher. It was pretty good, but other than that, nah. But these two discuss what could have happened to the 30 soldiers. Anything to add here?
Yeah. The movie reveals to us that Lady Taria and Lothar are siblings.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I have that next.
No.
Why? This doesn't come up ever.
I'm not saying that they can't be siblings. I'm saying, could you cast them to look like siblings?
They don't even need to. It's just, why even mention it? Because it doesn't come up in the story. It's completely unimportant. They're just adding more to the characters for the sake of adding more to the characters. And I have to say, like, I'm going to ask you guys right now. I know we're going to cover it later on in awards. Do you care about anybody in this movie? Anybody?
I kind of felt bad for that deer. Like, it wasn't doing anything.
See, and now this is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know who we're rooting for. They seem to spend more time with the orcs than the humans, but the humans seem to be the good ones. I don't know. I don't fucking care. I don't care about anybody. I'm like, just give me some fucking fighting and we're good. What's this? 2 hours plus of nonsense bullshit. Oh my God. Just fucking get on with it.
You picked this movie.
I know. That makes it worse. Anyway, sorry. The king decides it's time to summon the Guardian. And I have a note here which we covered. Like, I feel like way too much has happened in 15 minutes. This is just stuff I guess fans would already know, getting things out of the way early. But for people like me, I'm left completely in the dark. Orcs are kidnapping humans to power the gate. Sure. Intro to Black Hand, who is Clancy Brown, as Sandra said, who's second in command to Gul'dan. And honestly, I'm just like skipping through shit here now, boys. But we finally meet the Guardian, who's building a golem. Ben Foster in his worst role yet?
I mean, I don't know all of his movies, but I'd say yes.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
And real quick, where do we meet him?
In Karazhan.
I knew
Thanks,
Ben
Josh.
wasn't gonna know.
No, it's a major, I wouldn't say hub, but it's a major spot in the game.
That started as a raid.
It was a raid, yeah.
Yeah. Started as a 10-man in Burning Crusade, and then when did it
became a dungeon? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever
Legion.
it is.
But anyways, doesn't really matter. The whole point is it's a major location in the world.
No card doesn't tell you.
No location card.
I have no fucking idea where we are at this point. Eventually,
you are in the cleanest ancient library you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I complained about this in our review on Pixel Opinions. Everything in this world is too perfect.
Well, it has that weird shine to it that I remember seeing in the later games. Like, you look at how shitty the graphics are in Warcraft 2, jumping to 3, obviously, many years later. But it looked so polished and clean and bright. I felt like that was carried over into this movie. Again, me not knowing much about the games, but I didn't mind it.
I'm not talking about brightness, man. I'm talking about things like, in the game, taverns have cobwebs. In this movie, even like bricks are perfect. There's no chips in them. The characters, like these characters are supposed to be like a king who has no wear and tear on him. Khadgar looks like he just hit puberty and he's never seen dirt before in his life. Garona's teeth are perfect. What kind of dentistry did they have? I just don't understand why everything has to look so perfect. This is an ancient library and there isn't even dust.
These are weird things to get hung up on.
But it's the thing. It would be okay if it was just the library. The books don't have dust, for example. I'd be like, okay, it's a magical library, so maybe that keeps it clean. But everything, like even when they go to Goldshire and they show, there's one shot, and it's just like the stupidest.
Where the fuck is Goldshire?
It's where they have a meeting when they're doing plotting later. But we'll get to that. It doesn't matter. You won't know because there won't be a card for it.
I don't even remember it being mentioned.
They do actually say at one point, let's meet in Goldshire. But anyway, like there's just a random panning shot that's going into the room with the meeting, and it shows the arc over the door that's like a brick arc, and the brick is perfect. Like nothing looks worn.
No,
you know what I mean?
Like masonry.
It almost, it's funny because it really looks like a lot of the things that happened in game. Because like, if you look at the aesthetics in the game, they really didn't have kind of the programming or the textures to be able to put in a lot of wear and tear on certain things. And so they didn't, right? Everything does look pretty shiny and new. And it's like that aesthetic kind of came into the movie, which is really interesting when you think about like a medieval fantasy or high fantasy film, is that you would expect, as Sandra mentioned, some kind of wear and tear on things. Regardless.
Guarantee you I could boot up Classic and find you at least imagery where the texture work wasn't good enough for it, but they put some things like cobwebs in corners.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
You and your cobwebs.
I'm just saying, it makes the whole movie have this, and like maybe this is where the orcs stood out a little bit too much to me, but like everything is just too pristine. Even the stuff that is made to look like a chipped tooth, it looks like a perfect cut, not jagged or anything. Again, like what sort of dentistry did they have?
See, I actually really enjoyed that in the film, though, because it makes it stand out from other, like Josh said, high fantasy films. It's nice, it's bright, it's clean, completely unrealistic, of course, but it makes it stand apart from others, and I enjoyed that. Like I really enjoyed the look of it. Obviously, there are a lot of problems, no doubt.
It's kind of like looking at gold and what people think gold should look like. People think gold is supposed to be like this shiny, bright, like reflective material. And it's like, no, it's not that bright. It's kind of a little bit more muddled. It's still a very nice looking metal, but it's not like super polished and shined.
Yeah, exactly. But Sandra would also have it covered in cobwebs.
Oh, shut up, Ben. You know what I mean.
I will say, I can only give the one excuse for, Garona's teeth, in that, again, they tried to keep her as human as possible, and for purely for sex appeal, like.
Oh, definitely.
And how many times walking through Stormwind in World of Warcraft did you go by the dentist office?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like that's a mistake, but in a sense, but like it's they planned for it. They wanted it that because of making
sex
her
appeal, apparently
more attractive. That's exactly it.
Yeah, she's got green skin, but look at those teeth.
Speaking of which, At one point in the movie, she's referred to as not completely orc, not completely human. Are we allowed to believe she's part orc, part human? And if so, how would they be shocked to see what humans are for the first time?
So this is a big like lore plot hole that they have in the movie.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but she's normally what, half orc, half Draenei?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So she is supposed to be half orc, half Draenei, but they hint so heavily in the movie that she's half orc, half human.
Yeah,
I actually feel like they hint that she is the daughter of one of the characters in the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. They put major hints there, and that is not correct. At least again, lore wise, but.
Without saying any, like, without the movie telling me anything, I'm left completely in the dark. Like, that's another question that I probably won't get an answer to.
Yeah.
Khadgar's tattoo leads him to a special book. Sure. Just like glows pointing towards the book. Like glows brighter.
You can pretty much excuse it up to magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to have to, because they don't talk about it beforehand and they don't talk about it again after.
No.
He just has a tattoo that in this particular scene guides him to a book that he needs to.
Yep. The Guardian's like just basically straight up attacks him and then explains what the fell is. But okay. First of all, let's go back. Do either of you want to explain who the Guardian Medivh is?
Sure.
Because they do a bad job of it in the movie.
Yeah, so the point of the Guardian itself is to be the Guardian of Azeroth, as in the most powerful magic user, kind of like the Deus Ex Machina that you would use against any threat to the world itself. And it's something that they do not really explain in this. Medivh is quote-unquote kind of like the last real Guardian in a sense. And
he's like Super Gandalf.
Yeah. So the original Guardians, the very first one, and I'll talk about this later when we talk about another name that pops up, was the amalgamation of a bunch of mages putting all their power into one being. And that one being was then named Guardian. And they would then pass on that power to the next Guardian as they were ready to retire, or they would, be ready to die, essentially.
See, that's really cool. I wish that was included.
Yeah.
Because all I know is that Ben Foster's got some wicked skills.
Yeah, you just know that he's a super powerful person, right? Like a super powerful mage.
It's very confusing to me with like the lack of that information. Like,
I thought you meant very confusing why he took this role.
I think everyone expected this movie to be a massive success and the start of a franchise.
I mean, critically, maybe not, but financially,
not enough to do another movie.
Yeah, all thanks to that China money.
Yeah, and I do find the Guardian. I find Guardian is a confusing character because it comes across as he's supposed to be wise and incredibly powerful, but in the entire time acts like a complete asshat.
Yeah,
like a spoiled brat. It's really weird. But they teleport to Stormwind where they confer with the king. I do appreciate their attempt to understand the reports of the enemy, like giants, monsters who rely on wolves to carry them, huge, unstoppable monsters. It does sound pretty ominous, and I like that. Also, how
like you got to think of it from their perspective, right? Like, how would they describe a being of that size, right? Where their hand was like as large as your head, and could throw a horse and stuff like that,
it's
right?
Terrifying, and I love that shit, and they do a good job of conveying that here. I also do enjoy how none of the other kingdoms really trust each other enough to help.
Yeah, and I mean that honestly is pretty true to the lore as well. So.
Yeah. The costumes, Josh.
Sure.
I believe look fantastic. Especially the soldier's armor reminds me a lot of what I remember from the third game. Is it?
Yeah,
Is that accurate?
it's very over the top. Like it's almost like,
Oh, yeah.
if we're gonna have a pauldron, it's like make it the biggest, most extravagant pauldron you can possibly have, Or if you're
Yeah.
gonna have a breastplate, make sure it's like the most polished, extravagant breastplate you can possibly have. And it's very true to the game and their kind of like stylization. They do that with all their armor sets, I suppose you could say. So,
But I think it looks fantastic.
mm-hmm.
Like, again, this movie does look good. It's just lacking everywhere else. A party including Medivh, Lothar, his son, and Khadgar set out to the attack sites, which turns out to be an ambush. Great fight scene, which builds the threat of how mighty the orc forces are. Mm-hmm. That one dude, guys, that takes a mace directly in the face. His head is non-existent. The kills in this movie are all insane. Incredibly brutal. They look great. In the scene, we even get a Wilhelm scream. I think one of many in the movie. We get our first combat use of the boomstick. And that completely removes an orc's hand. Is that Black Hand?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
that
why...
was between Lothar and Black Hand.
Yeah. And that makes sense for all the Black Hand stuff later on in the movie. Medivh uses fell magic from a distance to destroy the orcs. And this is where I get one of many storytelling problems. It's pretty early on in the movie. We've been told a few times now how bad the fell is. The Guardian is an all-powerful protector who's using corruptive magic. Did anybody not see his future turn happening at this point?
Oh, yeah. The second you see him using magic and it's green in color as well,
right?
You're like, well, that doesn't look right at all. Clearly, they've taught us that green is bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the first time I saw this, like, well, I don't care about this character anymore. I know exactly what his story arc is. And when like the big turn is revealed, you're like, well, they showed us that an hour and 15 minutes ago, so I don't care anymore.
It's really like he pulled out a lightsaber and it was red. Like
exactly.
It was just like it was very, very obvious.
I think even more so than the color of the lightsaber, it was like they didn't tell us he's a Jedi, and then he just pulled out a lightsaber, and you're like, oh,
yeah, that's fair.
I guess later he's gonna be a Jedi.
Yeah. There was another good thing about this scene, and probably the only time I actually laughed in this movie. And that's Lothar's disdain with Khadgar after the battle. It's like, where's your horse?
Lose that horse?
They took my horse. And the look in his face, he's like, really? And just stay here, and rides off. Like,
yeah.
Best acting Fimmel did in this movie, which is really sad. Durotan frees Garona from her chains, and the humans capture her. Okay. The other orc who Lothar captured is then killed. And am I supposed to know who this is?
No, rando.
Okay. I really enjoy how they use languages. What?
Nothing. I just am I supposed to know who this one is? No, just a random guy. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like they purposefully made sure I can't follow along with everything that's happening. Because they're throwing so many names and plot points at me, and none of them come back in the movie. So I'm like struggling to be like, who is this? Is this person or this person? Or, oh, they're dead now. Is that important? I still don't know who they were. Is this going to come back? And then you already missed what happens like a few seconds after that because you're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Sorry, Josh, I cut you off, though.
No, you're good. All I was saying, is just some random dude, and I think, like, you're right in a sense, where, okay, well, he was in the fight, and that was a pretty substantial fight with him, and, like, having his wolf circle around while he fought Lothar on the horse. Like, that's a pretty substantial fight. Maybe it is somebody who's important, right? So,
yeah, and that fight was great. And I love like I said, how they deal with language in the movie. How whenever it's just for the audience's viewing, everybody's speaking English, but when you're supposed to be viewing it from one of the humans' perspectives within the film, they can't understand anything the orcs are saying. So we get subtitles here and there, and I thought that was pretty fun.
It was actually really interesting, and actually one of the kind of like small highlights I would say is how they did the language kind of flowing back and forth, and that'll come up later when they have a meeting between humans and orcs. But very interesting hearing the translation happening. So
yeah, loved it. Next, Garona reveals to the king that she learned English from human prisoners who've been taken to power the gate between worlds. That's fine, but my next question is, how much time has passed since they started capturing humans? She learned a language in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that I think that they could have done much better, because the fighting between humans and orcs would have taken far longer. But of course, stretching that across a movie for only 2 hours can be difficult. I understand, but it's kind of lazy writing, where like they could have had outposts being attacked for like weeks even. They're basically going in and they're killing some of these people, or they're being defeated and they still don't know how to describe them exactly. They're just giants. Like, this could have been happening for a lot more time than just a couple of days, and yet they took kind of like the lazy road and said, yeah, it's been 2 days, and just don't, and ignore the fact that she can speak language in 2 days.
The even lazier road that what they could have taken and would have even made more sense is just, it was magic. Like, yeah, sure, it's not in the game, but like, in D&D we have like comprehend language, like just a spell, we know the language, or at least like, oh hey, Garona is half human, so she is actually able to have this spell cast on her to understand their language or something. It would have been lazier, but it could have been a little bit more easy to swallow.
Sure. Yeah, especially for the average watcher, right?
I totally imagine the conversation between the two writers, the writer and director, then be like, how does she know English? Learned it from human prisoners. Okay, over how long? I don't know, 2 days. It's not that much time. That doesn't really make sense, right? And the other being like, have you looked at what we've written so far? It doesn't matter. Nothing. Like, the story is just so fucking terrible.
It's bad. Just say it's bad.
It's bad. Okay, it's bad. Does anybody want to talk about Gul'dan's judgment scene?
Yeah.
Very good.
No, I don't think there's anything important there, really.
Yeah.
They're trying to show, I guess, Durotan's kind of honor system, his belief, right?
Yeah.
That's about it.
That we're supposed to believe that he feels some sort of sympathy for the humans, or, oh, I'm catching on that the fell magic is what destroyed my people. But he couldn't see that when you destroyed like the entire Draenei race on your old planet. This is where you have your change of heart.
Well, Ben, the viewer, does not know any of this. And it's like, oh, he's got purple people in a cage. Oh, the purple people are dead.
Yes, but you still see that you have a race of purple people completely being destroyed for this gate. And now he's like, oh, this small group of humans that we interacted with in the forest, maybe we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, well, you can only repeat something so many times before you start questioning it.
I can even give it, and I'm giving it way more credit than it deserves, is to think of almost like, how as soldiers, right? Let's say Nazi soldiers, for instance, because they use that as an example a lot of times, that they were just following orders, right? So the idea for him to essentially be a soldier, he's following Blackhand, because Blackhand is kind of like the top soldier of the orcs, right? And so whatever Blackhand says, he's kind of good with. And if Blackhand says, oh, we should follow Gul'dan, he's going to lead us to salvation, right? It's like you kind of just believe it. You don't see the 7 million Jews dead, right? I know, again, maybe I'm giving it way more credit than it actually deserves, but that's the closest I can even come to some kind of, believing that this is even possible.
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy-handed comparison, but I think you're on the right track there, yeah. It's just more so follow orders, don't question, do what needs to be done, quote unquote. Next, Durotan meets his son. It still confuses me why the kid's bright green, but all right. I originally thought it was because of the magic used to bring him back to life. Because I don't know. It seems like everybody in what's their clan? Frostwolf clan?
Yeah, they're supposed to be a brownish color. Yeah. So I mean, lore wise, you're not actually that far. Any interaction with fell magic is what turned the orcs green.
Oh, okay.
And basically pure orcs. Later on, it comes up as they're called Mag'gora. I forget what that means, but basically they're ones that are unaffected by the fell. Are the brown or tan colored orcs, right?
Oh.
So again, not something that really gets that. It's not something I think they necessarily intended for so much with the movie, but they were definitely hinting at certain things like that.
Honestly, if they said that, it would make me really think more about the movie.
Either that or like Durotan looks over at Gul'dan being all green and then at his baby. He's like, wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Something is off. Not sure what.
You said book club, Draka.
I think actually they do make one very small hint at this as well. In a previous scene when Medivh uses the fell magic, right? And they're like, "Oh, it's killing them all." And then the humans say, "Only the green ones." Right? That's the only kind of small hint that they make at, again, the fell having to do with the green orcs.
Jeez, I didn't catch that at all.
I was too busy trying to figure out who the fuck was on screen.
No, that's fair. I can completely understand as somebody who doesn't know all the names, doesn't recognize all the people. Watching it, you're like, who the hell am I watching at this point, right? So
yeah, it was 2 hours and 3 minutes of me asking that question. Shady Medivh questions Garona until Tarja arrives and shows her kindness by supplying blankets and drink. Tarja offers Garona freedom if she sides with Stormwind. No problems with this scene. It makes sense.
Fine.
It's direct to the point.
Yep.
Builds that relationship.
They make one, I guess, hint here, which is interesting, where Garona mentions that it would bring me much honor to kill you, right? Yeah. Kind of hinting at the idea of what happens later on, how much honor it brings to kill a chieftain or a chieftain's spouse.
Yeah. I think that's also referenced later on before the actual act.
I think you're right, yeah.
Next, I thought was a great scene between Durotan and Orgrim, reminiscing about the past, followed by the agreement that Gul'dan must be stopped. Durotan agrees that they aren't strong enough to kill him themselves, but maybe they could with help from the humans, which seems like a pretty big leap for an orc. But finally, we're starting to get a bit more of a plot in this movie.
Yeah, you didn't need that.
Well, it's something I can follow along with.
Yeah,
finally.
Although I do agree, I do like the interaction between Durotan and Orgrim. They do come off in this scene as old friends.
Yeah, and it also makes me question who the lead of the movie is and who we're supposed to be siding with. At this point, I think it's Durotan.
Could be Durotan, could be Garona, could be Lothar. Definitely not Khadgar.
Next awkward scene with Lothar suiting up Garona in armor. Not a fan at all of the look in his eyes during this scene. He's got creepy eyes to begin with, but there's some very very awkward stares happening that she does not seem to be a fan of. Next, the party sets out for the gate. We get a bit of Garona's backstory about how her mother was burnt alive and how Khadgar was given up by his parents at 6 years old. Eventually, Durotan gets Garona to set up a meeting with the king.
He wants to lie with me.
Yeah, that was great. I forgot about that.
anyways.
Yeah, them around the campfire was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Next is one of my favorite shots of the movie, which is completely CG, unlike, well, most of the movie's CG, but this is the cool overhead shot of orcs destroying human villages.
Yes.
It felt like the game to me. What's up with the Medivh's healing pool? Is this a movie convenience or a game reference?
Yeah, no, movie convenience, really. I mean, you could argue that in lore that Karazhan is kind of like a font of power, and when he's away from his font of power, he doesn't fare well. But it's not really a thing. So
I forgot this was a completely different place. The kingdoms meet to discuss uniting against the orc horde, and it does not go well. And this is where Lothar discovers that his son almost died in battle. The king agrees to meet with Durotan. Medivh discovers that Khadgar has been researching and piecing together clues as to the origins of the gate and how it works. So Medivh destroys all of his findings. And this, guys, obviously he's not a villain, right?
Yes, obviously.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page here. For sure, the next thing Khadgar should do, which he does, is immediately go to Lothar and reveal that he's discovered that somebody from Azeroth lured the orcs to the gate. Again, this is something I can follow along with. And now I don't know if they've realized while they were writing the script, shit, I don't think any outsiders really know what the fuck we're talking about. Let's throw in some new plot points where people can snag on and kind of hang on for the rest of the film. But in doing so, I feel like they stopped paying so much attention to the fans of the games. Am I right here, or is this just a me thing?
I mean, it's not. It is actually accurate to the lore of what happened. Is that Medivh actually invited them in, and that's how they came across. I think it was really just a reactionary, a normal kind of reactionary thing that Khadgar was doing, going to Lothar, being like, he's your friend, you know him well, and there's something wrong with him. Introducing it as a new plot point, is that something that really changes it? I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of put myself in the shoes of somebody like not knowing it.
Yeah. But it's like Khadgar doesn't even really know until later on when he sees Medivh's eyes glow green.
Yeah, he's not sure.
He's just like, this is weird. Don't you think this is weird? But the orcs and humans have their meeting. Again, like Josh, you and I were talking about the management of languages here. I still love.
Yeah, really well captured.
Yeah. More explanation of Fel kills people and corrupts those who use it. The meeting is ambushed by the other orcs who attack everybody. Tipped off by Orgrim. Again, action scenes are great. Decent editing, no quick cuts. We see everything. I love little things like the shield formation and how the wolf will like run up over the shields and they just keep stabbing it through the cracks between them. Like just a really cool battle scene. Also, the magic barrier that Medivh creates to allow the humans to escape, but actually ends up dividing their army slightly. So Lothar is forced to watch his son be murdered and not really being able to do anything about it. Like even trying to push his way through the shield to no avail. Yeah. Movie all of a sudden starts showing emotion, which I did not expect. Sandra, you've been kind of quiet lately, man. Anything you liked or disliked about this scene?
They tried so hard up until now to get us to give a shit about the relationship between Lothar and Callan. Callan gets decimated, and I'm like, all right, I'm glad he's out of the way as a plot device.
Yeah. Well, we've only really seen him, twice before?
Very
Yeah, I
briefly,
mean,
yeah.
they drop some hints, like, at one point when Lothar's talking to, I think it's Tarja, and he says to stop trying to put him in the assignments because he doesn't want his son out there. So it's like trying to show some concern and some previous issues, but nobody cares.
Yeah, there's also the hospital scene, which is one of the few that he's in, and he says, like, you're all I've got, right?
The humans rescue an unconscious Medivh and rush him back to his rejuvenation pool, cementing his place in the League of Shadows.
Green eyes, uh-oh.
Yeah, that's where he notices the green eyes, a sure sign of the Fell's corruption. And next we get a conversation between Garona and the healing Medivh that's supposed to be emotional, but comes across as meaningless.
So
And
this is where they kind of suggest that Medivh is her father.
Yes.
And it is done very poorly. It is definitely not the case in the games, and just feels like the most pointless, tacked in bullshit attempt to get us to give a shit about this character's relationship at all.
Yeah, that's why I said
It's
it comes
funny
across as meaningless.
It's funny, so they do really, really try hard to hint that Medivh is her father, and yet it's not technically canon because they removed all the comic book stuff from canon, but they actually have a child together in one of the comics.
Ooh.
So, anyways,
Oh man, that just
that
took
makes it super awkward, right? Like, but yeah, I don't know why they did that. They really didn't need to, have this dialogue between the two, other than to say like Garona is interested in Anduin Lothar. Like that's all they needed to do in this scene, and Medivh's kind of good side could have been just, okay, well, let me get him to you, or get you to him. Like, you didn't have to do the father-daughter thing.
Yeah. The whole conversation just leads up to him transporting her to him.
Yeah.
So I don't fucking know anymore. Conversation between Gul'dan and Orgrim is more entertaining, if not plot driven. At least we get some more disturbing life essence removal. That shit of him just like with the chained human on his knees next to him, and every now and then just like drain some more of his life.
It's pure power move right there.
Yeah,
like
it
you
really
are just basking in it.
And it looks great. It's a haunting image.
Yeah.
The whole talk about Orgrim being infected by the Fell, him sidestepping it, being like, yeah, it should be done in front of all of my people to show how much stronger I'll become.
Like
the look in his eyes
like,
is like,
kind of
oh
smart
god,
thing that Ogrim does.
God. Yeah. Lothar is absolutely wasted and mourning his son. He and Garona have a discussion about loss and blame, which is supposed to add weight to the characters, and I don't care. I don't care about any of these characters whatsoever. I also feel like this whole scene was just an excuse to get them to kiss.
Oh, 100%.
The rest of the orcs attack the Frostwolf clan in a scene that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why this is happening. I thought the point was to rally them together to show the power of the Fell and further unite the Horde.
See, Gul'dan is also smart and did not want to have to deal with Ogrim's little, I guess, plan to have them all together, because even though I guess Ogrim and like Durotan don't see 100% eye to eye here, up until this point at least, I think Ogrim still secretly doesn't trust Gul'dan, and that's why he doesn't want to accept the gift right then and there, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like accepting fealty, right?
Yes.
And the way Gul'dan takes that is kind of like, well, if you're not going to accept fealty, I think everyone else, of all of your other people, are also going to be just as doubtful. So I'm just going to murder them all instead.
Yeah.
It happens right after their meeting, though. So, like, why does Gul'dan agree with him and then just turn around?
See, I'm with you, Sandro. Like, Josh, what you're saying makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But that's left up to the viewer to be like, well, I guess this is what's happening. They're not going to tell me, so maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but this goes against everything that I just saw.
That's fair. I think it's probably far too subtle of a move for this movie.
Because this is not a thinking person's film.
No.
Orgrim allows Draka to escape with the baby. Khadgar returns to Hogwarts to warn his former teachers about Medivh.
Hogwarts.
I don't care anymore. They show him the aloe dye, and Josh, fucking take this away.
Yeah. So the part I was going to mention earlier is that Aladai is the first guardian. At least according to the lore, it was a half-elven mage, but who was gifted the power of a bunch of different mages all kind of combined into one. And they would, again, slowly pass this down the generations until eventually it got to Medivh. But they completely did something different with this. They made some sort of weird box entity that had like a woman inside of it who is supposed to be Aladai. I have no idea what the hell they were doing with this. This is like, as a person who understands a decent amount about the lore, has no idea what the fuck they were doing here.
Yeah, this is a movie that should have come with a fact sheet. Just like some reference explanations. Because at this point, I am completely fucking lost.
Well, and I don't know why. Like, even if he was like, "What is Aladai?" and they could have been like, "Aladai." Nobody's spoken that name in 1,000 generations. That was the first guardian. Why would anyone bring that up? Like, they didn't have to. They didn't have to shoehorn in this magic box BS. It could have been done the same thing by name dropping the original guardian, right? Like, it made no sense. Is my point.
And what kind of bet did Glenn Close lose to end up in this role?
It's a good thing we know it's Glenn Close, because if you look on IMDb or even in the she's uncredited. She played this part, and then she was just like, "Oh, that might have been a mistake."
Yeah,
you know
if
what
you
it
put
was
my name
that
on this, I will sue.
It was probably just that she was on set for like another movie on the set next door, and they're like, "Hey, Kate, can you come in here and do this for a minute?"
And she's like, "Yeah, but I don't know the movie." And they're like, "Neither do we."
Yeah, like, don't worry, we'll just write you into it.
Just come in and say some shit. We'll figure it out. We'll work the script around
She probably
it after.
would have been like, "All right, give me one of them fancy like shield things to take home after then, right? Like, here's a prop."
I mean, I'd do it for that. That'd be great.
Me too. I know, right?
Although if I walked on set and they're like, "All right, get in the box," I'd be like, "Well, this took a weird turn." So, no. Medivh gets back into his pool, which turns into a fell pool.
Why?
He admits, I don't know. As soon as he gets in, it just starts to change.
Why now? Why not the previous times he got in it?
Because he's being more and more corrupted, Sandro.
Okay.
Remember, this is where we have to figure things out for ourselves, and that's all I can do right now.
Give them excuses.
He admits to not remembering all of the bad he's done. Then he begins turning into a demon. My next note says, "I've pretty much given up at this point, and I'm just watching the movie now."
Sad thing is, it's not that far off from the lore and turning into a demon.
The rest of Ben's notes for the movie are just, nope.
Yeah.
The king and Lothar butt heads over battle strategies. Medivh arrives and effectively removes Lothar from the equation. The solution? Put him in the holding cell to cool off. In reality, he's in there for at least a full day, which makes no sense. Orgrim comes to his senses and frees Durotan from his holding cell. And my question here is, if he only had to take out 2 orc guards to free Durotan, then why not do that earlier, allowing him to escape with his family?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the timeline of that. It makes very little sense. Like, the other thing is you would think that if he could take out a couple of orc guards like that, he might have been able to save more Frostwolf. Right?
It's a very good point.
They're making it all out to be like, well, he's the last Frostwolf now, like him and Durotan and of course Draka and the baby. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have saved some, you just had to conk a guy over the head, you could save some people? Come on.
Yeah. No, it's just plot convenience, I guess.
Yeah.
The king and his army set out while Khadgar rescues Lothar. The two agree to kill Medivh, then join the army in battle. The second time I've laughed in this movie was when Lothar threw his shoe at the guard, and the guard immediately turns into a goat.
Sheep.
Again, it's a sheep. Yeah. Sorry, the look on his face,
and he's holding the other shoe, right? He's like, wait, how did this happen?
Yeah,
did that actually work?
Yeah, gold. Draka sends the baby down a river and is immediately murdered. Yeah, my note here says, I'm saddened by this scene. Not because of Draka's death, but because the movie didn't make me care about it. Comments?
So, she didn't know she was going to get killed immediately there. Obviously, she knew there was people chasing her.
Yeah.
We'd have to assume that she didn't think she was going to die in 30 seconds.
Well, I'm sure she knew that they were going to catch up to her fast.
So her idea was that it would be safer for her child to just release him by himself into the river and
work
not
for Moses.
Follow it? Just keep running. Yeah, okay, you let it go in the river. Now keep running yourself.
Yep. I mean, an orc does burst out of the forest almost immediately afterwards.
I think this could have been better served with releasing him into the water and then trying to lead the orcs off the trail.
Yeah, Thank you. At least that would have made some sense.
Yeah, like,
throw their scent off or something. Yeah.
He's going to survive. I may not, but I can at least give him a best chance, right?
Because, in her mind, if she fails at defending him from this orc that pops out of the forest, the baby's only 30 feet away at this point.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything.
Did a lot more than if she held on to it the whole time.
It's just, there's so many issues here. Josh said it. It could have been so easy if she just then attempted to throw them off the trail.
Put them on the thing and then run a little bit. Hey, over here, and start running in the other direction.
But the amount of time after she puts it in the water, she would have gotten instant. Maybe 3 meters in the other direction.
Instant.
They still would have seen it.
Yeah.
So just change the timing a bit. Make it she had a minute, a minute's head start or something. Because I don't think we see them immediately run after her after she escapes through the back of the tent, do we?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, all right, whatever. Durotan challenges Gul'dan to a fight to the death, known as the Mak'gora. And the reveal we get here confuses the shit out of me. Because this old warlock dude, Gul'dan, is horribly hunched over the entire movie under a blanket and shit. But once challenged to the fight, he stands upright and is a fucking giant. Why?
I got nothing on this one, Josh.
So I mean, I guess the only thing you can really know is that in a Mak'gora you can't use magic, right? That's something that is a big deal to the orcs. Is that a Mak'gora, the only thing you can use is your body and a weapon, right? Mm-hmm. So if anything, he should have just picked up a weapon, but I guess he didn't really feel the need to. He was just going to outbody, Durotan.
It just seems weird that he's hunched over the entire time when he doesn't need to.
Yeah, it is very strange. Again, I can imagine him being okay, I can't use my staff to use magic, so he puts the staff down. But why does he have to take off his robes and get all weird and like you said, get up essentially?
Because when he stands up, his staff looks like a club in comparison.
Yeah.
But anyway, Lothar and Khadgar arrive to kill Medivh, but are quickly overpowered, and the Guardian begins the incantation to open the gate. I hate how they keep jumping from scene to scene while different stories are happening, different action scenes. But Gul'dan uses magic to kill Durotan, and the rest of the orcs are infuriated by the break in honor tradition, as Josh was saying. Gul'dan infects Blackhand. Is Blackhand, right?
Yep.
Yeah, with the Fel, and the orcs somehow just fall in line.
Yeah, they're so offended that he used magic, and they are a little, I guess, afraid of him when he shows his power again after that.
Yeah.
But they show no respect to the result of this, especially considering how much respect they show to it later.
Mm-hmm. This fucking movie, guys. Oh, the battle between humans and orcs begins. And honestly, it's pretty awesome. I really don't have any complaints with that. What I do have a complaint about is Medivh bringing his golem to life. And I hate the whole thing. The fight with Lothar just feels like it's padding the runtime, which is already running into excess. More orcs enter Azeroth through the gate. Demon Medivh, he's looking pretty fucking badass, though, I have to say.
Yeah. His slow, the transformation where he slowly gained the horns and yeah.
Not looking anything like Ben Foster anymore.
Yeah. And Foster's like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. Just fill it in with CGI. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Though the golem falls on him and pins him to the ground. I don't really seem that much of a badass wizard or whatever.
The entire guardian of the freaking entire realm, and I can't get this heavy thing off me.
My stone carving fell on me.
It's so sad too, because in this fight scene with those three happens in the lore as well, but in the lore it's so much better because
I would hope so.
What happens is Khadgar and Medivh are fighting, and then Khadgar ends up getting cursed by Medivh at the very last second. Just as Lothar basically stabs Medivh right through the chest, running him through, right? Now, Medivh does full transformation at this point after being stabbed in the chest, and the only way he got stopped is that Lothar was fast enough to pull his sword out and decapitate him. That would have been so cool. I don't know, but...
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, the problem is it would have been so cool, and therefore wouldn't have fit the movie we actually have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Khadgar enters the Fel pool, freeing Medivh of the evil magic while fending it off himself. Did I miss the part where he became powerful enough to do that?
Nope.
Makes no sense. Yeah, it makes no sense.
There wasn't a part. It just is.
Okay. Fine. Lothar jumps out of the window and rides a griffin toward the battle. A dying Medivh recites another incantation, changing the gate to a portal to Stormwind and creating an escape for the humans who are being slaughtered. Kind of neat idea. It doesn't last long, though. As the Guardian dies, the portal closes. Next part I enjoy, and it feels like it's too good to be in this movie. King Lane, knowing that they'll lose the battle, convinces Garona to kill him. And this not only puts her in the highest of honors with the orcs, but it puts her in the perfect place to try and unite the races. The only selfless character in this movie. I find all he wants is the best for everybody. He wants all the kingdoms to work together. He's willing to die for the benefit of the world and get people as over as possible who are probably going to be slaughtered if he doesn't do this.
Yeah.
And she does. Stabbing in the back of the neck kind of seems like a dick move, though. I mean, there are other ways and faster ways.
So she does stab him in the back in lore, but it's actually in the throne room, in his throne room, as opposed to on the battlefield.
That would add a lot more to the story for sure.
Yeah, it changes the dynamic significantly, I think, from what the movies had. Because again, like a king dying in battle, you could be like, anything could happen, right?
Yeah,
even with Garona's dagger, anything could happen, right?
Yeah.
But like in a throne room when there's no, like, he's surrounded by his guards, by the queen, by like a few other people.
The safest place he
she
can
just
be.
stabs him right through, like in the throne room. Like, that's crazy, right?
Honestly, give me that fucking story over this. But this is one of my most favorite parts of the movie because it's sensible. Sorry.
Yeah. Again, I like you said, Lane's sacrifice means a huge deal, right? The fact that he's just willing to do that for everybody, that does mean a lot.
Yeah. Also, how the orc reaction changes so quickly, because originally she seemed to be like the hated quote half-breed that comes up again, who like killed their king. Basically, now it's praise be to the cursed one.
Yeah.
I don't understand how their opinion can change that quickly and
That's
disregard
how much
everything.
killing a king earns their respect. I mean, orcs live by combat. Like, that's the biggest thing to them.
Mm-hmm.
So she killed the human king. That earns her, like, it. That's exactly what King Lane was expecting to happen. How he knows that much about their culture?
Well, this is what I'm getting at. Like, it just seemed off to me.
Whatever. It's a stabbing. Just get to the point.
Oh, you don't like when people nitpick, Sandro?
No.
I think, I mean, and it was something that I probably had to tell myself as well watching this, but like the idea behind it is almost like she was playing the double agent the whole time, right? She was trying to get near the humans just to like lead him out there into pasture so that he could be slaughtered, right? And then look at that, she even killed him herself. Like, oh, yeah, like she's so cool, right?
Yeah. And that's a fantastic idea too.
Yeah.
And whether that's what happened or not, that's how the orcs could see it. Oh, she was on our side the whole time.
Yeah. Lothar arrives and starts slaughtering orcs. He runs to the king's body and realizes the dagger in his back is the one that was given to Garona by Ataria.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but during this whole time, that griffin in the background is fucking up orcs left and right. It is
He's just going to town.
Yeah. Just shredding, ripping, tearing, biting, throwing.
They need more of those.
Yeah. They try to leave, but are stopped by Blackhand, who challenges Lothar to Mak'gora. Lothar wins it in 2 strikes.
Oh, so disappointing.
Yeah. This is a perfect example
this
opportunity.
Should have been a great climax fight between the two.
Agreed. 2 strikes. That one sliding slash, and then a stab in the back.
Yep.
The orcs honor the rules and allow the victor to leave unharmed. Gul'dan is convinced not to kill Lothar, which would result in the horde turning on him, even though it didn't last time, like Sandro mentioned.
Yeah. They were seemingly more afraid of him than... I don't know.
It's because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the only thing I can even piece together is like, because Blackhand is supposed to be like the real leader of the orcs. Mm-hmm. He's the one who leads all the different war chiefs, and that he's viewed in this like really high regard. So, in the first part, when they were afraid of Gul'dan, they still had to follow, Blackhand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like here, Blackhand just died in the Mak'gora. Like, who are they going to follow now, right? And if again, I'm giving excuses for it. Okay, like that's the best I can.
So
really
you're the
do.
one.
Yeah, I'm the one. That's the best I can really give as an explanation as to
but you
anything that makes
have
sense.
To. You shouldn't
No,
have
I shouldn't.
to do
You're right.
that.
You're right.
Orgrim rips out a tusk from Durotan's corpse to gives to the fallen orc's son so we can learn from his spirit. We cut to Stormwind. Lothar shows Khadgar the dagger, claiming that Garona has made her choice. At the king's funeral, the kingdoms finally unite in an alliance to fight the orcs. My next note is that fucking orc baby is still in the river. It finally washes ashore where it's discovered by a human. Roll credits. Fuck. Finally. Sorry, boys.
Where's my sequel? I actually think there are some merits to if they could have done a sequel, because I think there are some plot points that would have made a lot more sense given the carryover. Things like the Alliance, things like maybe Thrall or Goel.
Which they never even say Thrall in the movie, eh?
No.
I guarantee you Ben is now hearing that for the first time.
No, I've heard of it.
He doesn't get named Thrall until after he's found anyways, so his actual name is Goel, exactly as they put on there. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is that there are some storylines that could have been very well told, I think, in the next thing, and I think together it may have made a better product than just this movie. It is unfortunate. I think there was a lot of issues with the direction that they went with the writing, like some of the choices they made, some of the changes they stepped away from the lore when it's like, why? Like, there is substantial lore that already exists, and actually it's fine. Like, why change it, Like, there was no need to change some of it. Even for action purposes, there was no need to change it, because it was just as action-packed with its former, canon version than it was with the Warcraft film version.
You say choices were made, but I think the only choice that was made was start writing and don't look back.
That's fair. Maybe that is the issue. It's like they didn't try and, actually it's kind of funny to even say it, but it's like maybe this is more Warcraft than I even think. In the sense that, because there's a lot of plot holes and issues that come up even in the game lore that slowly kind of get either filled or ignored and stuff like that over the years. Maybe this is far closer to the game than I give it credit for.
No.
Honestly, looking at ratings and stuff, we'll do budget first, but look at ratings. Critics seem to be the only ones who didn't really care for it that much. But either of you want to take a guess at the budget for the movie?
Go ahead, Josh.
I don't know. You said it's expensive, right? Maybe $100 million.
Okay. Sandro?
No.
160.
Wow.
Okay. Gross? We'll go worldwide, not domestic.
Well, it definitely made money, but only because of the Chinese market.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's say, okay, so what is it? You said 160 was budget. I was going to say triple their money, which is about maybe just under 500 or 500-ish.
439.
Ooh, not bad.
Yeah,
close,
it made a lot of money. Honestly, though, I'm they say the safe thing to do when judging the actual cost of the film is to double the budget when you take in advertising, marketing, all of that stuff. I kind of feel like you'd have to do a little bit more than that for this movie because of the fan base they're trying to connect with.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It made made a lot of money. It did really well. Moving on to reviews, the scores, IMDb. What do you think? What do you think it's sitting at on IMDb? What do you think people rated it?
I mean, if I want to kind of think of myself as a person who understands the movie,
yes.
Without going overboard, I think it's going to be a 6, and that's because even if I could rate it myself today, I would probably give it a 6, and it's because okay, it's better than average. It's kind of like an average fantasy movie, but I like it a little bit more just because it's I understand the lore.
Yeah, fair, makes sense. Sandro?
4.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would say too. But it's at 6.7.
Yeah, well, that's wrong.
The critics for Rotten Tomatoes, the Tomato Meter, they gave it lower than what we did.
27.
Josh?
So lower than what you guys did.
Yeah.
25.
29.
Ah, I was closer.
Yeah.
Still too high.
The audience, though, that's the one that caught me off guard. Audience score.
Audience. This can't be good. It's like 78.
Josh?
I'm still going to go with around like the 60 range. So we'll say 65.
76.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't understand. But let's honestly just hop right into awards.
Yeah, there's no sense in dragging this out. All right, Josh, we usually ask our guests to lead us off on the awards. So if you could please let us know who your least favorite character was, whether that's just their performance, the character's actual, demeanor, just who you didn't want to see on camera the most, just any reason why. Who was your least favorite character?
So my least favorite character was Garona. And my reasoning for that was I felt it was the largest separation from kind of like what the character should be. And the fact that, like, they just painted a human green. Like, they did not give her the same kind of orc treatment that they did with the rest of them. And I felt her talking was quite stilted. It's probably due to the writing more than anything than the actual actor. I'm not going to blame her. But just, it didn't like the approach to the character that they gave. So
fair enough. And then between the two of us, Ben, you usually lead off on least?
Medivh, played by Ben Foster.
Okay.
I thought the character was poorly handled. The character twist was given away at the beginning of the film, so I didn't care about any of his actions leading from there. And Ben Foster's an amazing actor, and it felt like he was so horribly restrained in this role. He looked like he just didn't want to be there because he knew this was terrible. Now, there are a lot of least favorites I could pick. I just feel bad for Foster because I know of all the actors in this, he's capable of so much better.
I want to say Ben Foster for a very similar reason. Every time I'm on camera, I'm like, oh, just get off the camera. You deserve better than this. But I actually went with Ben Schnetzer as Khadgar.
Okay.
And it's mostly because of this character's arc. Like, he goes from this bumbly, useless reject of a mage at the beginning of the movie to defeating Medivh, while obviously there was situational assistance. But when the hell did he become so good?
I don't know.
He didn't, but we're just supposed to believe he was? Come on. Like, what is this character? Like, the most inconsistent character, at least many of the characters that you see are just gradual, like, evolutions of the characters they are at the beginning of the movie. This guy just completely changes, but for no reason at all.
Plot convenience?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I went with. All right, Josh, who did you have for your favorite or best character?
So my favorite or best was Anduin Lothar. And I think the thing for me with him was I wanted to see more of him. Like, there were times where, I wanted to see him fighting more, or like I want him to have more funny lines, like some of the moments that he had where like Ben and I talked about it, like, really? Like, there's a lot of good moments, and I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that. And I think it was like such an anticlimactic scene at the end with him and Blackhand. I wanted that fight to be drawn out a little bit more, and I want to see him like kick ass. So that to me was the best performance, though, was Anduin Lothar.
Okay.
All I can say with that is, if you wanted to see more of Lothar, watch the first 2 seasons of Vikings, because it's a carbon copy character for Fimmel to play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The whole time I was watching, I'm like, this is Ragnar. This is what Ragnar would do. This is what Ragnar would say. And I don't even know which show, like which came up first, the show or the movie. But yeah, Josh, he's a fun character.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sandro.
So I also had Travis Fimmel as Wish.com Aragorn. Probably, probably for the same reasons that, probably for the same reasons Josh did. Like, he is a pretty cool character. He's got the combat prowess. He's got a little bit of the like snarky attitude. He might even have the most unperfect look, as in like, this is a character who actually looks like he might have been in some battles before. He wasn't, kept in plastic like everyone else. He was a cool character.
Cool.
Ben?
I went with King Lane, Dominic Cooper.
I can see that.
I loved it. He's the only, I would say, selfless character in the movie who is willing to sacrifice himself for the betterment of everybody.
The good king.
Yeah, he was a great king. Acted very well by Cooper. Wasn't on screen too much. The character was there just enough to keep the story moving. So I never really felt heavy-handed at any point. Even when he's being misled by Medivh, it's believable because they play to the king's sensibilities. It's actually, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but decent writing to an extent.
No.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
purely
wrong,
by accident.
but- exactly. But it works out well. Like the character's actions are believable by the way that Cooper plays Lane.
Yeah.
And I don't get that from a lot of other people in this movie.
Yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
And that's why you're right.
All right. Josh, what was your favorite or most memorable line, sir?
So I did mention it earlier, and I don't know which part I like better, but I honestly think just because of the character, I like Lothar's smile and laugh better. But it's when Garona says he wishes to lie with me, and you just see in Lothar's face, and he just smiles and starts cracking up. That was my most memorable line.
All right.
For me, it's where's your horse?
And subsequent reaction.
Yeah. It's, like I said, one of the two moments in the movie where I laughed. Both times because of Lothar.
Yeah, those are both good Lothar moments for sure. Or lines. I guess lines and moments, really.
Yeah.
So I went with Durotan.
Okay.
And it's the beginning narration because it pretty much set the movie off into what I was expecting. He says, there has been a war between orcs and humans for as long as can be remembered. But there was once a time when we didn't even know who our enemy was.
Yeah, it's a fucked up line.
And right away, I'm like, this is the writing that I am in set for now for the next 2 hours. Yep. We've been fighting for as long as can be remembered, but we think that there was a time before can be remembered where we didn't know who our enemy. Like, oh, just don't make this movie.
Can you imagine the voiceover line for the opening of the film? Just, yep.
Well, there isn't even a need for that second part. Just say, as long as we can remember, there's been a war between orcs and humans. We get, as viewers, that there's a time before what people remember. It's a needless explanation that it's just one of small example of many ways they pad this like runtime needlessly by adding a line that's just stupid, contradictory, just terrible writing, and it just lets you know that you're in for 2 hours of this shit.
It was so long.
Okay. Josh, what was your favorite moment or scene?
Well, I read it as memorable scene, so I don't know if it was like
it's either.
favorite.
It's either favorite or memorable. Just like the line, it's kind of just your favorite moment or scene or most memorable. Positive, negative, whatever.
If I'm going to go with my favorite scene, it's actually what Ben mentioned at the very beginning. That scene between Draka and Durotan was so good and had so much chemistry and so much potential for what the movie could have been. And it's sad to know that it went downhill from there. But that really set a tone that could have been followed. And I think it would have been a far better film if they had followed that. But
Yeah, I went with the scene directly before that, the opening orc and human fight, because that got me really, really hyped. And that's
interesting
the only
about that
time
too is that it's so classic to what the games do as well, because there was always
Exactly.
like some kind of cutscene at the very beginning of the games where it showed something like that, right? An orc and a human fighting, or like, you know, blood in the water and there's two dead people there, but they were, you know, again, an orc and a human that had just fought in a war. Like it was always trying to show this battle between the two, and so I think you're right. It really does, you know, have a really good you know, Warcraft feel to the entire thing.
Yeah, it sets the tone that it doesn't follow throughout the rest of the movie, though. Like, as soon as I watch this, I'm like, okay, I don't remember this. This is fantastic. And then we get the scene that you mentioned right afterwards. I'm like, this is going to be good. And then it just seems to go downhill swiftly.
Yeah.
So it's memorable to me because I'm like, these are the two good scenes. They're at the very beginning of the film. That's really disappointing. So memorable because it's a good scene. Also memorable because it's really disappointing that they started off on such a high note and just tanked.
Yeah.
Sandro?
So I actually went, and despite that they kind of ruined it a little bit with constantly cutting away from it, but the Durotan Gul'dan fight.
Okay.
Not
Yep.
bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, for a very simple reason, it's just visually well done. It's actually quite entertaining watching these two orcs pummel each other for a little while. It's just a pretty entertaining scene, although they do take a little bit of the wind out of the sails by constantly cutting away from it.
Yeah. It really highlighted kind of the brutal nature of the orcs and their tradition too, right? Like it was kind of an interesting thing. So
Yeah, the action scenes in this movie, I really enjoy. And like that's pretty much the only thing that got me through this movie.
yeah. Yeah, I have no complaint with any of the fights, right? Like, you know, you look at them fighting in the chasm before you know, Callum dies, and like the Mak'goras, except for the last Mak'gora, of course. And the fight scene around the portal, that was great with like all of the orcs and humans fighting.
Yeah.
Didn't even mention the fight in the trees that had the wolves. There was some pretty nice
so
scenes
good.
with that too.
Yep.
All right. Well, that brings us to our closing thoughts. Josh, what's kind of like your summed up thoughts on this movie?
I mean, I think this both benefits and suffers from the Warcraft name. You know, like having the name Warcraft, you have a certain legacy to live up to, and it didn't. You know, at least for the most part, it had some things in there, and I think Ben said it best. It's like a failed love letter to the fans. There's some stuff in here that's great for the people who love the lore, and then there's other stuff that they shit on when it comes to the lore. So it's a really kind of middling experience, and that's why, like even I mentioned, where I would still give it probably like a 5 or a 6 today. I just feel it's very middle of the road, you know, where it probably could have been a great experience. And, you know, taking a big franchise like Warcraft and using it, I think, you know, again, could have been something really, really good. But I think in this case, it actually hurt it.
All right, Ben?
Like I said, at the beginning, they throw so much at you at the very beginning of this movie where you're trying to grab every little bit of information they throw at you, and they're doing it so quickly that you're like, this is going to be very intricate in its storytelling and its plot unfolding. And then you get to about the 15-minute mark and you realize that they just riddled you with nonsense. And not only is this not going to be an intricate film, but it's also going to be riddled with plot holes. I love the action scenes. We've talked about that a few times. They're absolutely fantastic. but the movie's over 2 hours long, and I can't recommend watching it just for those scenes. Like I would not recommend this to anybody. I don't want to say I hated it because I didn't, but it's really, really bad. I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I don't think I'm gonna ever watch it again. Sandro?
Well, it's nice that you don't want to say it. I will. I hate this movie. This movie is garbage, and nobody should watch it ever.
We've seen worse.
That's as much of an explanation as I feel this movie deserves.
Very good. Well, like I said before, I apologize, guys. Like I said, when I picked it, it was because Josh was coming on, and I knew he had a lot of Warcraft knowledge. I forgot how terrible this movie is, and I forgot the runtime of this movie.
That was our thoughts on Warcraft. If you guys want to share your thoughts with us, hit us up on social media. We are at BS Bargain Bin, facebook.com/BS Bargain Bin, bsbargainbin.com, or you can leave a comment in the YouTube section. Before we close out, Josh, I just want to say thank you again for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
thanks, man.
Please let people know again real quick where they can find you on the World Wide Webs.
You can find me as well as Sandro and fan service on youtube.com/pixelopinions. Or if you want to go to Facebook, we are facebook.com/thepixelopinions, as well as other social media spots.
Awesome. And of course, the website, pixelopinions.com. But I guess that's not that important. So that being said, Josh, you are our guest this week. So we are going to ask you, what movie will we be watching next week?
Well, I know it's not technically October, but it will be very shortly.
No.
No, it's October.
At the time of recording, it's not. This episode will be going up in October.
So since it's October, I will be going with the theme of course, horror and Halloween. So I will give you guys, the next movie is going to be Hellraiser, 1987. Good old classic body horror right there for you.
I have seen the future of horror. His name is Clive Barker. Beyond any terror you have imagined. A nightmare. No. Unlike anything you have witnessed, is born. Because within these walls, the unholy is unleashed. A film by Clive Barker.
We'll tear your soul apart.
I'm down.
All right. Until next week, have a good one.
All the best.